I was sitting in my corner office on the 18th floor, sipping coffee that had long gone lukewarm, when the email pinged. The view outside was all glass and steel, downtown Chicago stretching out like a glittering maze, but my eyes stayed locked on the subject line. New business partner introduction. Meeting at 3 p.m. I clicked it open, skimming through the formal pleasantries, until I saw the name. My heart stopped. Daniel Reed. I let out a short, almost bitter laugh. Of course. The man who once told me that my job was glorified busywork was now about to walk into my office as my partner. The irony was almost too much to handle. I set the coffee down carefully, not because I was worried about spilling it, but because my hands were suddenly trembling. I ran my fingers along the edge of my silk blouse, smoothing out wrinkles that weren't there, grounding myself. "Okay, Lily," I whispered under my breath, my voice steady but sharp. "You wanted this moment. You earned this moment." My heels clicked softly as I crossed the office, glancing at the framed photo on my desk. The day we launched the company. I remembered the exhaustion, the fear, the pride. And now, 3 years later, I was about to sit across from the man who once made me feel small. Except this time, I wasn't small. This time, I was the one holding the power. 3 years ago, I was 26, overworked, underpaid, and trying desperately to prove myself at Reed and Company. Marketing. I still remember that Thursday morning. The office smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink, and I was clutching a stack of reports I'd stayed up all night preparing. Daniel was standing by the glass conference table, sleeves rolled up, that smug smile tugging at his mouth. "Lily," he said, not even looking up from his phone, "these numbers better be better than last quarter's joke." I swallowed hard and slid the folder across the table. "They're solid. I've double-checked everything." That's when he laughed. A short, dismissive chuckle. "Relax," he said, finally glancing at me. "You take this job way too seriously. It's just admin work. Anyone could do what you do. Don't burn yourself out over something so replaceable." The word hit me like a slap. Replaceable. I nodded, keeping my face neutral, but inside my chest something cracked. I'd spent months staying late, canceling plans, going above and beyond, and to him, it meant nothing. At lunch, I sat alone in the break room, staring at my reflection in the vending machine glass. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped my soda. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother lit up the screen. "Remember what I always say, sweetheart. No one gets to decide your value, except you. Now go make them eat their words." I smiled through the sting in my eyes. That night, after everyone had left, I packed my things into a cardboard box. No farewell email, no tears. Just quiet determination. Before leaving, I slipped my grandmother's silver bracelet onto my wrist, the one she'd given me on my college graduation day. It caught the light as I locked the office door behind me. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have investors, connections, or a safety net. But I had grit. And I had her words echoing in my head like a battle cry. By the next morning, my resignation letter was sitting on Daniel's desk. And my new life had just begun. The first few months after I quit felt like free-falling without a parachute. I worked out of my tiny apartment, my office, nothing more than a wobbly thrift store desk wedged between the kitchen and the window AC unit that rattled through the night. Money was tight, so tight that I ate instant noodles 4 nights a week and lived on gas station coffee. Some mornings, I woke up with my stomach knotted in fear. What if Daniel had been right? What if I really was replaceable? But every time doubt tried to take over, I touched my grandmother's bracelet and reminded myself why I left. My first break came when I cold emailed a small bakery downtown and offered to run a social media campaign for them at half the market rate. They said yes. I poured my soul into it, photos, captions, engagement strategies, and within 2 months, their foot traffic had doubled. Word got around. That's how I met Claire Matthews. She owned a boutique PR firm and happened to see my work online. She called me one evening. I still remember sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, laptop balanced on my knees, and said, "You have talent, Lily. Real talent. I want to help you grow this." Claire became more than a mentor. She was my compass. She taught me how to price my services fairly, negotiate contracts, and hire freelancers. She was the first person who made me believe I could build something bigger than myself. The next year was a blur of late nights and early mornings. I learned how to write proposals, manage budgets, pitch to skeptical clients. I made mistakes, sent the wrong file once, missed a deadline another time, but I learned fast. Then came my first big client, a local chain of coffee shops. When they signed a 6-month contract, I celebrated by buying a secondhand office chair that didn't squeak. From there, everything snowballed. Within 18 months, I had incorporated my own marketing agency, Willow and Company. I rented a modest office space, just 2 rooms and a shared bathroom, and slowly built a team. Mia, my first hire, was a bright-eyed designer fresh out of college. We worked side by side, eating takeout and brainstorming campaigns until midnight. And through it all, I stayed quiet about my success. I barely posted online, never bragged to old coworkers, and certainly never reached out to Daniel. Not because I wanted to hide, but because I wasn't ready. I wanted to grow until there was no denying what I had built. Until no one could call me replaceable ever again. By the time Willow and Company moved into our downtown high-rise office, we had 15 employees, 6 major clients, and revenue that made my accountant grin every quarter. I stood in my new office that first day, looking out at the Chicago skyline and whispered, "We did it, Grandma." But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. By the time the clock struck 3, my office looked like something out of a design magazine, sunlight spilling across the sleek walnut desk, fresh flowers in a glass vase, framed client awards glinting on the shelf. I had chosen everything in this space carefully, not just for aesthetics, but to tell a story. When the door opened, Daniel Reed stepped inside. He hadn't changed much. Same perfectly tailored suit, same air of casual authority, same hint of arrogance in his smile. But there was something else there now, a faint crease between his brows, like the years had not been as kind as his expensive watch suggested. "Lily," he said, his tone warm but cautious, like he was testing the water. "It's been a while." 3 years, I replied evenly, gesturing toward the chair across from my desk. "Have a seat." He glanced around the room as he sat, his eyes catching on the company logo etched into the glass wall behind me. Willow and Company. "This is impressive," he said slowly, as if the word tasted strange coming out of his mouth. I leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. "Thank you. We've worked hard." He cleared his throat and set his leather briefcase down. "So, I'm sure you've heard Reed and Company is merging with your firm on the Harper account. I'll be the lead from our side." I nodded, keeping my face calm though my pulse hammered in my ears. "Yes, I'm aware." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I let the silence stretch, watching him take in the space, the framed photos of my team, the carefully organized shelves. He was piecing it together, I could see it in his eyes. Finally, he asked, "You're not just consulting for this project, are you?" I smiled, slow, deliberate. "No, Daniel. I'm not consulting." I leaned forward slightly, letting the weight of the moment settle. "I own this company. Willow and Company is mine. Every campaign, every client, every paycheck. And now, I let the pause hang, savoring it. Now we're partners." His jaw tightened, just barely. "You own it." "Yes," I said softly but firmly. The girl who did replaceable admin work built one of the fastest-growing agencies in the city. And now, Daniel, you and I will be working side by side as equals. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked uncertain. Not angry, not dismissive, just caught off guard. "I didn't mean," he started, but I held up a hand. "It doesn't matter what you meant," I said, my voice calm but unwavering. "What matters is that I'm not that girl anymore. And this time, I get to set the terms." Silence filled the room, heavy and electric. Then, to my surprise, Daniel let out a short breath and chuckled. Not mocking this time, but almost admiring. "Well," he said, leaning back, "I guess I underestimated you." "Most people did," I replied. He nodded slowly, almost respectfully now. "Then, let's make this partnership work." I allowed a small, satisfied smile. "Oh, we will," I said. "But it'll be on my terms." The meeting wrapped soon after, but as Daniel left my office, I saw him glance back once more at the company logo, as if he was finally seeing me for who I had become. And for the first time since that day in the conference room 3 years ago, I felt no anger. Only victory. The next morning, I called for a follow-up meeting, not in the boardroom, but in my office. My space, my rules. When Daniel arrived, I was already standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, sunlight at my back, coffee steaming on my desk. I didn't motion for him to sit right away. I wanted him to feel the shift in the air. "Before we move forward," I said, turning to face him, "there are a few things we need to make clear." He raised a brow, that familiar flicker of pride in his eyes, but this time he didn't interrupt. "First," I said, crossing to my desk, "our teams will operate as equals. No undermining, no dismissive remarks. If someone from my team is in the room, their ideas get the same weight as yours. Period." Daniel nodded, slowly. "Fair." "Second," I continued, my voice firm but not sharp, "respect is not negotiable. I don't care if we disagree, and we will, but I won't tolerate condescension. From you, or anyone on your staff." He leaned back slightly, arms crossed, studying me. "You've changed," he said finally. I smiled faintly. "I grew up." "Anything else?" he asked, sounding more curious than defensive. "Yes." I picked up the silver bracelet on my desk, rolling it between my fingers for a moment before fastening it back onto my wrist. "We're going after the Harper account to win, but we're doing it my way. Ethical campaigns, authentic messaging. If you want gimmicks or shortcuts, find another partner." Daniel let out a quiet laugh, not mocking, but almost admiring. "You really run this place like a general." "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "I run it like a woman who built it from nothing." He studied me for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "All right, Lily. We do it your way." I let out a slow breath, feeling the tension in my chest ease. This wasn't just about a merger or a campaign. It was about rewriting the rules, not just for me, but for every young woman who'd ever been told she was replaceable. As Daniel stood to leave, I added, "One more thing." He paused. "Someday, when a young employee in your office is working late to impress you, I hope you'll remember this conversation. And instead of dismissing her, you'll tell her she has potential." His expression softened, and for a moment, I saw a man who might actually change. "I will," he said quietly. When the door closed behind him, I sank into my chair, a smile spreading across my face. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. I had taken back my voice, my power, and my future. And I had done it on my terms. Weeks passed, and the new partnership settled into a rhythm. Daniel adapted to the boundaries I set, and slowly, I saw glimpses of respect, not just from him, but from my team, too. They watched me navigate the merger with calm authority, and I could feel their pride in what we had built together. Some nights, I stayed late, sitting alone in my office after everyone left. The city lights blinked below, and I traced the contours of my grandmother's silver bracelet on my wrist. It was a quiet reminder of where I had started, the timid girl who was told her work didn't matter, the one who felt small in a room that didn't see her. Now I saw clearly how far I had come. Every late night, every rejection, every fear, it had led me here. I wasn't just successful in the way the world measures it. I was strong. I was respected. I was unshakable. And the best part? I had learned that power didn't have to be cold. It didn't have to come from intimidating others or holding grudges. It came from knowing your worth, holding firm to your values, and lifting others as you climbed. I thought about my team, my clients, even Daniel. I realized how much people can change when given the chance, but only if someone sets the right example. Leadership, I discovered, was about courage, integrity, and patience. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath, smiling softly to myself. The office was quiet now, but it wasn't lonely. It was a space I had earned, one I had built with my own hands and heart. The silver bracelet caught the light, and I whispered the words I'd heard on that long ago day. No one gets to decide your value except you. And this time, I fully believed it. As I looked out at the Chicago skyline, I knew I had rewritten the story. The girl who was mocked, dismissed, and underestimated had become a woman who could command respect, set the rules, and rise above the past. Funny how life works. The man who once mocked my job now trusts me to save his. And for the first time, I didn't just feel powerful. I felt free.